The latest action crime drama from Netflix, The Gentleman, is making a powerful debut. It is a remake of the 2019 film of the same name. Directed by Guy Ritchie, can the TV series adaptation surpass the original? Let's wait and see. Without further ado, let's dive into the main plot. The story unfolds on the Turkish-Syrian border, where soldiers are dealing with a minor dispute among local residents. At that moment, a Mercedes S500 stops by, and Eddie approaches to inquire about the situation. As the car window rolls down, he recognizes the person as his family's lawyer. It turns out that Eddie's father is critically ill, and the lawyer has come to take him back. Eddie has a strained relationship with his family, and he avoids answering their calls, prompting the lawyer to make a personal visit. When Eddie returns home in the BMW 740, he finds his father barely clinging to life. His father passes away that night. After the funeral, the lawyer gathers Eddie's family and reads the will. Being the second son, Eddie expects no inheritance. However, the will explicitly states that all assets are to go to him, leaving him stunned with this unexpected turn of events. While Eddie is overjoyed by this unexpected windfall, his elder brother Fletcher expresses his refusal vehemently. He disapproves of the decision, grumbling and denying its validity. The lawyer explains that the will complies with specific inheritance laws, and the assets rightfully pass to Eddie. Although Fletcher is greatly dissatisfied, he has no choice but to accept reality. Eddie, who is now forced to accept the multi-million-dollar inheritance, finds little joy in his newfound wealth. Fletcher pesters him for money, immediately asking for £4 million. It is revealed that Eddie was duped into a failed investment, borrowing £4 million from a Liverpool drug cartel with exorbitant interest. The debt has now skyrocketed to over £73 million. If Eddie doesn't repay by the weekend, he'll face severe consequences. Fletcher blames Eddie for supposedly robbing him of his inheritance, insisting that Eddie could have easily weathered the financial storm with the family fortune. Eddie explains that he never anticipated his father would leave everything to him. As brothers, Eddie reluctantly agrees to help Fletcher out of his financial mess. He opens his father's safe and starts counting the cash inside, only to find a meager sum of just over 18 million. The next day, he contacts the lawyer to prepare the remaining 55 million. The lawyer informs him that despite the substantial assets left by his father, there is currently only the modest 18 million available. Even though a random painting in the house is worth 77 million, it would take several months to liquidate. The lawyer suggests selling the estate, and Eddie agrees, instructing him to contact potential buyers and get a quote. Soon after, a beautiful woman named Susie contacts Eddie, telling him that the estate cannot be sold. Perplexed, Eddie accompanies Susie to her farmhouse. After opening a coded steel gate and another hidden door on the floor,
now what happens down there? What the fuck?
Eddie is astonished to discover a secret operation growing cannabis. It turns out Eddie's father had a clandestine partnership with Susie's family, providing them with a 60,000 square meter estate for cannabis cultivation. Susie annually pays Eddie's father $46 million, securing his status as a secret benefactor in the lucrative drug trade. By the way, if you enjoy our movie recaps, we're currently hosting a giveaway for our audience. We're excited to announce that a brand new scooter awaits one lucky subscriber. Don't miss out. Subscribe and follow us to stay tuned for more updates. Susie's family controls nearly half of the market share in the drug business, and she hopes to maintain the collaboration with Eddie. If Eddie sells the estate, their operation would be exposed, leading to unfavorable consequences for both parties. Susie doesn't pressure Eddie to make an immediate decision, and advises him to take some time to think it over. Upon returning home, Eddie confides in the longtime butler, Jeffrey, who has been with them since their childhood. Jeffrey is well informed about Eddie's father's affairs and understands the implications of dealing with Susie's powerful family. After careful consideration, Eddie decides to halt the sale of the estate and continue the partnership with Susie. Eddie discloses Fletcher's financial predicament to Susie and requests her assistance in raising the $73 million cash needed by the weekend. Susie finds the task challenging, but agrees to help him secure half of the amount. She then heads alone to meet Tommy, the drug cartel leader who usually operates discreetly. When Susie mentions Eddie's father, Bobby, Tommy agrees to meet with Susie. Susie gets straight to the point, stating that she's there to resolve Fletcher's debt issue. She emphasizes that despite being in the same industry, there's no competition between their products. Using her eloquence, Susie manages to renegotiate the debt back to the principal amount. Tommy, the drug cartel leader, agrees to the deal but imposes a condition. Frankie must record an apology video admitting he's a jerk. Susie readily agrees, and the news of this successful negotiation reaches Eddie. Even though Eddie had taken down the listing for the sale of the estate, there are still interested buyers willing to pay above market value. The estate, built in 1550 and designed by a renowned architect, attracts high offers. Eddie firmly states that the property is not for sale. A buyer's representative presents Eddie with $2.3 million in cash as a gesture of goodwill, expressing the buyer's desire for a face-to-face meeting. Despite Eddie's refusal to sell, he agrees to meet the buyer. The buyer, John, is extravagant in his spending, tipping the service staff more than Eddie's monthly salary. John raises the offer for the estate twice, but Eddie remains resolute in not selling. During their conversation, Eddie mentions the wine cellar at home, containing rare wines. John, being humble, suggests buying the wines if he can't acquire the property. The wines, initially valued at $11 million, are generously offered $27.5 million by John. After selling the wines and adding the money from the safe, Eddie has $47.8 million cash on hand, more than enough to settle his brother's debt. However, upon opening the safe, he is shocked to find that the initial $18 million has disappeared. Eddie hurriedly calls his brother Frankie, only to discover that Frankie has squandered all the money on gambling. Urgently, Eddie asks Frankie to retrieve the money, but Frankie hangs up on him. With Frankie's debt repayment deadline approaching in 2 days, Eddie knows that if he fails to pay, his brother will face dire consequences. Eddie quickly brings Susie to the gambling venue, where Frankie lost the money. After paying $180,000, they manage to secure 2 tickets. Inside, they find a boxing match featuring former world champions. Due to the illegal nature of the event, the results are kept confidential. Locating Frankie, Eddie confronts Pete, the one who deceived Frankie for the money. Pete claims the funds are all invested in the match and cannot be retrieved. Frustrated, Eddie stands up, ready to confront Pete. However, Pete's bodyguards surround Eddie. Sensing trouble, Susie signals for Eddie to leave.
I'm not done with you.
Okay, whatever. Why don't you fuck off?
Despite Pete's provocations, Eddie returns to his seat, and Susie advises him to stay calm and watch the match.
It's a scam.
What do you mean it's a scam? He never places the bets, mate.
He preys on the posh, only rinses the privileged. And then he protects himself with plastic gangsters that he's immersed himself with. And your lot are too intimidated to complain.
Watching Pete's arrogant demeanor, Eddie becomes increasingly uneasy. Unable to contain himself, Eddie confronts Pete again, exposing his deception. Pete, confident in his numbers, dismisses Eddie's accusations.
I think you should fuck off back to your country house and wank off your spaniel.
Yeah, you're embarrassing yourself, Captain. You're not in the army anymore. And you've got nothing to back you up.
Frustrated but realizing the impracticality of challenging Pete in that moment, Eddie returns to his seat. Susie offers her help, and the next day, Pete willingly returns the money he swindled from Frankie.
I think he wants to say sorry.
Oh. Do you want an apology?
I don't know. Do I?
Yes, you do. We need closure.
Blankets!
I just wanted to say sorry from the bottom of my heart.
Eddie is surprised by Susie's bold tactics, but she shrugs it off, saying,
And we are in the dog training business.
Impressed by Susie's resourcefulness, Eddie confides in her about John's interest in buying his estate and his suspicion that John might be aware of its illicit activities. Susie learns John's full name and discreetly notes the information. She relays Tommy's message, stating that the reduction of Frankie's debt from 73 million to 36 million requires Frankie to dance and record a video. Concerned about Frankie's reaction, Eddie hesitates, but when he mentions Tommy's demand, Frankie surprisingly agrees.
Suck his cock for 4 big ones.
However, when Eddie reveals Tommy's demands, Frankie adamantly declares that he'd rather face death. Eddie, asserting his role as the family leader, emphasizes that everything he has done is driven by fraternal love. He insists that Frankie must comply with Tommy's terms.
And if that means dancing like a chicken, you dance like a chicken.
Is that clear? You've taken everything else from me. Why not take what's left of my dignity?
Is that clear, Freddie?
Yes, Your Grace.
Soon after, Tommy arrives at the estate to collect the money. Eddie casually places the cash in a plastic bag, while Tommy and one of his associates meticulously count the money nearby. Tommy instructs Frankie to put on a chicken costume and start performing. He directs Frankie on specific actions, insisting that only if Frankie meets his standards will they proceed to record the video. Frankie attempts to mimic the movements of a chicken.
What the fuck kind of shit chicken is that? Come on, let's go, let's fucking chicken! Waddle like a fucking chicken!
Trying various actions to satisfy Tommy. However, Tommy continually criticizes him.
I want you to feel it. I want you to transform into a chicken.
Frankie attempts various animal movements at Tommy's direction, but Tommy remains unsatisfied, insisting that Frankie's attempts are too poor.
I want you to eat the wind, you fucking chicken!
Unable to bear watching his brother being humiliated,
That's enough! Hey, fuck off! Don't you interfere, otherwise it goes back up to 8 million.
Eddie urges Tommy to finish recording the video quickly and be done with it, but Tommy insists that Frankie must perform convincingly before they can proceed.
I need him to become a chicken! Come on! Be a fucking chicken!
After Frankie's humiliating performance, he angrily declares that he needs to use the restroom. This experience has caused significant insult and emotional distress to him. Upon returning,
Who's the chicken now?
Freddie! Fuck off!
this unexpected turn of events catches everyone off guard. Frankie calmly walks outside.
I just shot a guy in the head.
At this point, the first episode of The Gentleman comes to an end. If you enjoy this kind of thrilling film, stay tuned for the next exciting installment in the next episode.